Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I am making some miniature mushroom earrings and I am in love with this design right now. I made several pairs in different colors. Today we are going to be making the red ones because those ones are my favorite. So let's talk a little bit about tools and materials and then we will get right into it. For clays today, I am using a combination of Sculpey Primo and Soufflé. So I've got Twinkle Twinkle, White Pearl, and Green Pearl for my Primos, and for Soufflés, I've got Cherry Pie, Shamrock, and Pumpkin. And for tools, you will need a razor knife or some type of cutting tool. And then I have got a daughter, and I am using this mostly as a roller, the handle here. The dotting part, I am just going to be using to poke in my holes for my stems. So you can certainly use a toothpick or something else. I've got my straight pin for detail, and then I've got 3 different sized cutters here. Now the tiny one I am just using to punch out my holes for my jump rings. The other 2 are going to be for the mushroom caps, but you just need 2 different sizes. So, you can imprint or even freehand them and cut them out with your razor knife if you don't have those circle cutters. I've got some KEOKER brand clay cutters for my earring shapes here, and I purchased these on Amazon. They weren't expensive and I love them. I am using this one here, and again, if you don't have this, this is a pretty basic elongated shape, so it's got nice straight edges and then this kind of scalloped pointed bottom on it. And I am also using a cutter for my leaves. These are also KEOKER brand clay cutters, and I am just using these leaf sets here. And again, these are just very basic teardrop shapes that can easily be made by hand. I've got some assorted glass rhinestones, and I've got several different colors here, and they come in, I believe, 3 or 4 different sizes. And I will leave links in the description below for these products. And lastly, I've got a set of earring hooks, a set of jump rings, and some white paint that I am going to be using to add the dots on those mushroom caps when they're done. So I've got this sparkly black color here that I'm using for my background, and I am just going to start by cutting out my earring shapes. And now I can begin making the mushrooms. So I've got this pearl white color that I've rolled out pretty thinly, and I am going to lay that down first. And then I've got a piece of this bright red here that is quite a bit thicker, and I am going to set that right on top of that pearl white. And now I've got my larger round cutter here, and I'm going to cut out 2 circles with this one through both of these pieces, and then I'm going to cut out 2 circles with this smaller one as well. And each one of these little discs is going to be a mushroom cap. So I am going to start by just pinching the edge of this together all the way around, trying to keep that white as even as I can. And then I'm gonna set it on the top of my finger here, and I am just gonna begin kind of rounding that off, pressing it into my finger as I go. These mushrooms are not pointed on the tops, they're kind of flat and round, so that is the shape that we're going for. And I am just gonna repeat that process with all 4 of these pieces. The next thing to do is to add the gills, and I am using a straight pin for this because these are very small pieces, and I am just going to start by marking that hole there in the center and then just dragging my needle out from that center all the way to the edge, and I am just going to go all the way around like that. And now I'm moving my needle from the outside in, filling in some of those empty spaces along that edging. Here is the underside of that cap, and I am just going to repeat that process with the other 3. Now, before we can put these on our earrings, we do need them to be flat on the back side. So I have got my razor knife and I am just cutting off a small section off the back side of this. So not quite half. And I am kind of sawing with that blade so I don't smush the piece. And we want these about the same size. So I am just setting the other one right next to it and trying to keep it nice and even. And I will be using the scraps for these two larger mushrooms as my smallest set, and I am just going to repeat the same process here with these two little ones. And again, I am going to grab these little scraps from those large ones as well for my third set of mushrooms. And now we can start assembling these. So I am starting with the largest caps here and I am placing them cut side down and I am putting them on the outside edge of each one of these pieces and I'm kind of facing those caps outwards. So you want them a little bit crooked and mirroring each other on each piece. And these smaller ones I am going to put on the opposite edge and I am placing them just below that larger cap and facing them straight across on both sides. And those two little scrap pieces we are going to do a little bit differently. I am going to start by marking my hole for my stem right here in the center on these tiny pieces. And I am going to be wrapping these right around that outside edge, just opposite of that medium mushroom. So I am lining the hole here for the stem up with that edge, placing half of that cut side down to the front and the other half is just kind of hanging off there. So I'm going to pick this piece up and I am just going to gently curl that other half right around that edge there. Here it is, and now we need to push in the rest of the holes for our stems. So I've got my dotting tool here again, and I am just turning this piece so that I can see the undersides, and I am just going to mark my stem hole right there in that middle point that we marked with the needle. And now I'm going to be adding these stems, and I'm using that same pearl white that I used for the underside of those caps. And I am just making some skinny ropes here. And I am going to move these earrings onto another piece so you guys can see what I'm doing. And I am just placing the top of my stem. I am just going to push it right into that hole there very gently, and then I'm gonna let go of it and I can come back through with my dotting tool and kind of move that around and make it look more natural there. So here is that first stem placed and the next set here, and here are those tiny ones. And once my stems are placed, I am just going to trim a little bit off of the bottoms here. Not too much. I just want to expose that bottom point of that background shape here. And now we are going to be adding some leaves. So I've got this green pearl here that I've rolled out pretty thinly, and my leaf cutter. And I am just going to cut out several of these leaf shapes, and we are going to be using the small and medium ones here. So I am grabbing a medium-sized leaf first, and I am going to begin by adding some very basic detail lines here. And I am going to place this facing downward right here in the center of the lower point of that background. And then I'm going to add one of those tiny leaves on either side of that first one that we placed. And now I am going to be adding a round gemstone right on top of those leaves there. So I am going to just trim away a little bit of this one and the center one to make room for that stone there. And on the other side, I am just trimming away, again, part of this center one, and the side one there, I can just push out of the way here. And now I've got these larger round stones, and again, I am just placing them right here in the center of those leaf sets on both sides, and then pushing them in with the back side of my straight pin. And now I'm going to add a set of those medium-sized leaves that we used for the center on either side of that stone, facing upwards. And now I've got some tiny rhinestones, and I am going to be placing one on this inside edge just above that large mushroom, and another one up here on the outer corner. And then I've got a slightly larger one that I am placing right here, just below that other corner there. And again, pressing those in with the back side of my straight pin. This is what they look like so far, and now I want to add some grass down there at the base of those stems. So I've got some dark green, and I am just cutting this into some nice skinny little sections here in different lengths. And then I am going to just arrange these little grass blades in sets of 2 and 3. So I'm starting with a set of 3. So I'm going to do a large, a medium, and a small on these. There's 2. And then I'm going to grab one of these tiny ones and put it on there as well on both sides. And now I'm going to pick that up, and I am just going to gently pinch it and roll the bottom here with my fingers. And then I'm just going to cut off that excess here with my razor knife. And these ones I am going to place just off to the side of that stone near that edge mushroom there. And I've got these smaller sets of 2 that I am placing on the opposite sides of those stones. This is what that grass looks like. And now I've got this kind of muddy orange color, and I have just rolled that into 2 different sized balls here, and I am going to be placing those right at the base of each of those tufts of grass. And now I'm going to come in with my dotting tool and just gently press in the center of each one of those so they look like little cup mushrooms. Here they are, guys, and as a final step on these, I do want to take my razor knife and add a little bit more detail around the edges of these caps. So I am just coming right along the edge and just very gently making some little cut lines here. You want them really close together and not too deep. So I am just going to work right around the edge of each one of those mushroom caps, and I will make some of those cut lines just slightly deeper so that they look a little bit more natural, but for the most part, you want to stay pretty shallow. This is what that edging looks like, and now we can add our holes for the earring hooks. I am using this tiny round cutter, and I am just taking a small circle right off of that top point there. Now these earrings are ready to go in the oven, and I am going to bake them at 275 for almost an hour. And then I will be using paint to dot those caps. And now that these are baked and cooled, I have got some white paint here and my dotting tool, and I am just going to add some dots to the tops of these caps. Here are those dots, and now I am going to seal this with a thin layer of Mod Podge, and you can certainly use, some type of resin or varnish if you prefer. Here is the finished pair, and I am super pleased with these. Black and red is one of my favorite color combinations, and I love these little glass rhinestones. Now you will notice that I only added one jump ring to these, and for these particular earrings, because they are so long, I took that hook, and usually they come with the loop facing backwards, and I just grabbed that with my pliers and rotated it around so that it is facing sideways on the hook. And if you look at this, the way that it hangs, it prevents it from turning all the way around when it's in your ear. So it will move side to side, but it will never turn all the way around while you're wearing it. And here are the other two pair that I made as well. Now the dots on the purple and green ones here, I did using clay, and personally, I think that the dotted ones look much nicer. If you want to do your dots in clay though, I would suggest adding them after you cut your gills, but before you cut the flat backs. They can be very tedious to get on there and press in once the piece is put together. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and please consider subscribing if you haven't already. That is it for today, guys. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next week.